the next bait that I'm going to throw is something that I can cover a lot of water with. It gets me a lot of bites, and quite frankly, I think it's one of the best baits in the world. It is a 6-cents Divine Underspin, and this thing right here is absolutely, positively ridiculous. I'm going to rig it with just a small Smash Tail Junior. This is just a small paddle tail ribbed body swim bait that Smash Tech makes. It's a great bait.
Man, that thing has such a good tight kick. Like for wintertime fishing, there's really not another swim bait that you need when you're talking about jig heads and stuff like that. That Smash Tail Junior has just the perfect little tight wiggle that's just ideal.
And, and some people, I've had some questions on how to rig this up, and I'm going to show you guys on the camera. It's pretty simple, and I'm going with the small one, especially this time of year when maybe the bite's a little bit more finicky, and I just need to get a bite. Now, if I start to catch them and I'm catching small fish and I want to upgrade, I might switch to a little bit bigger bait. And the next thing everybody's going to ask me is, what size are you going to throw? What size are you going to throw? I generally am throwing a 3/8 ounce on this. I could throw a quarter or I could throw a half. I'm going to throw a half on this in the summer when I'm trying to get 25, 30 foot deep. Otherwise, I'm generally throwing a 3/8 ounce. This is 1 foot per second countdown. But when you thread this bait, and I just want to show everybody, you're going to push it up right there to that screw lock, and then all you're going to do from there is you're going to twist it, flap that tail over the hook, and just continue to twist it until it gets up there and it's perfectly straight. And it's real simple. I've heard people say, man, it takes too long. That's how long it takes to rig it right there.
That's how long it takes. And the value of that versus ones without a screw lock on the shank, you can catch fish all day on that thing and it doesn't go anywhere.
Same thing. I'm throwing this down. I'm fishing all around this bridge where I see that there are fish. I'm counting down to where the fish are at, and I'm slow rolling it. I'm throwing this on a little bit faster reel. I'm slowing it down a little bit. I'm throwing this on 15-pound line, guys. That's important because I don't want a lot of lag. I don't want the thickness of my line to catch this bait and make it rise. I'm throwing this on 15-pound line. Again, I'm throwing the Alabama rig on 20-pound fluorocarbon, both of them on fluorocarbon, and I didn't mention on the jerkbait. I'm throwing my jerkbait on 12-pound fluorocarbon line. That 12-pound fluorocarbon line allows that bait to get down there. It allows that bait to suspend. If it's not suspending, it's a big deal that it suspends. If it's not suspending, add a couple suspended dots, a little lead takedown, and it'll keep it on there real well. The next thing, and I'm glad Billy gave me this other smash tail, it's a Scrounger Head. Everybody familiar with Scrounger Head? This is a phenomenal bait, especially in the late winter, early pre-spawn. This is phenomenal around bridge columns. Same thing. I'm threading this bait straight up this smash tail just like that. That's about the only bait I'm throwing. The only other bait that I throw in this is an impact shad, and it is phenomenal. It has so much action, and this is a great bait.
Do you find yourself using the paddle tail more in the winter and the impact shad more in the hotter months?
I'm actually the opposite. I want a little bit tighter wobble, a little bit less action. But let's go ahead and be honest. I don't think it matters that much.
Fair point. Fair point.
Since this style of bait came out, somebody asked me one time, same thing you guys ask your friends and you ask yourself, if I had one bait, blah, blah, blah. Man, if I had one bait, a Smash Tail Junior on an owner flashy swimmer would probably be the one bait. If I had one bait, okay, you don't get the option of a crankbait and a jig. You don't get the option of a Carolina rig and a spinnerbait. You get one bait. This bait, I can fish this bait like a jig and catch fish. I can fish this bait like a spinnerbait and catch fish. I can fish this bait on the bottom. I can fish this bait on the top, and I can catch suspended fish on this bait. This has changed a lot of what we do in bass fishing. This is...
What's funny is my one bait is a chatterbait with that as a trailer, and you can say the same thing where you can fish bottom to top a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and a chatterbait would be right there with it. I will say this: I think if me and you had to pick, and I think you probably agree, if I put the small one of these on an owner flashy swimmer and you took a chatterbait, I'm probably at the end of the day going to catch more fish. It is a fish catching machine.
There'd be days where maybe I would have a bigger average bite.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you would catch more fish.
Now the next thing I'm going to talk about, and this is going to be it. Now, I don't have what I want, which is a ball head jig. So, has anybody ever heard of tightlining? Okay, so tightlining is a technique that most of you probably heard of, probably never done, probably never had any success on. probably not caught a lot of fish on. It's just not something we do in East Texas. I learned this technique from a buddy of mine that fished a FLW event in, I think it was like Washita or something like that. And one of these northern pros that target spotted bass a lot was catching fish that were suspended by taking a small 1/8 ounce or 1/16 ounce jig head. Now I brought this. This is just something that I saw in my tackle box. I don't know who makes it or what head it is, but see how the eye is completely straight right there. Mm-hmm. That's a really big deal for this technique. It's a big deal. You know, a lot of times on Alabama rigs, it's going to be towards the front to keep that nose going like this. It's important that jig head is at a 90-degree angle with your hook. Okay. I'm going to use a fluke style, an impact style bait. In fact, the small impact shad is amazing. I haven't personally used it for this, but I've used the Fluke Junior and the Super Fluke. Yeah, what's up, man?
Oh, his camera died.
Oh.
Keep going, you go.
And so I prefer to have a really lightweight, like a 1/16 ounce or something like that. All I'm going to do is take a straight tail bait similar to a Fluke or, like I said, a small impact shad, which I think in 2019 I used that impact shad a lot. It was a really good bait. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to thread it up there. Now, on this particular bait, I just want it as a straight shad, okay? So I'm going to, again, on this bait, I'm going to throw this, like I said, a 1/16 ounce ball head or, you know, a Divine swim jig head, just as small as you can get with a something similar to this. I prefer, in the colder months, a little bit smaller profile. So, like I said, I might go with the smaller Fluke or the small impact shad. I'm going to tie a loop knot on this bait to give it more action. All I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cast past my bridge column where my fish are at. As soon as it hits water, I'm going to flip my bell over on my spinning rod on 10 or 12 pound line, and I'm going to close it. And I'm going to hold my rod right at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to let this bait pendulum through the water. This bait with that 1/16 ounce weight is going to go really, really, really slow, and it's not going to have a lot of movement. And that's going to trigger the biggest bass in that school. That big bass, that big girl, what I call crappie eater, that crappie eater is going to come over and just suck that bait in. And you're going to catch a lot of fish. You're going to catch a lot of numbers, and you're going to catch big fish. I do think that it's important to use light line to give that true fall. That loop knot allows this bait to give a lot of movement. And that's a great, great tactic. The loop knot's something that I haven't been doing long, but I did watch somebody that does that.
Would you ever do that on the underspin head?
Yeah, the underspin head's a little different. I want that underspin head to run straight at me. You know, this is more of a subtle. This is kind of a subtle, kind of like, you know, when you're throwing the drop shot and you don't move it, you just hold it. That's sort of this. This is just a real subtle, you know, especially in the winter when the water's starting to get clear around these bridge columns on the southern end of your reservoirs. This is a really, really good tactic. People don't know about this tactic. If you're in East Texas and you're fishing tournaments and you just need 5, this is something your competitors probably aren't throwing. Again, I'm throwing it here on 12-pound fluorocarbon. A ball head, 90-degree ball head jig, a light wire hook, and a small shad imitation bait. I don't want a paddle tail. I don't want anything extra. I want subtle. You know, I want something that's just there. The one other thing
it's almost like a Ned rig, you know, a little bit of.
But it's not going to bottom. It's just making a pendulum.
I just mean not in the way you present it, but in the way that it's rigged. It's almost like a bigger Ned rig.
It's just something that's
a straight tail bait on a jig head.
It's going to swing by that fish, and that fish is just going to take a deep breath, and then you're gonna feel a tick like a crappie bite, and you've got a crappie eater. Now these again, when we start talking about these bridges, 12-pound line, all that stuff, you got to be careful because you do have the opportunity to catch the biggest fish of your life when you start getting around bridges. Now, that cross member or that cross beam that's under there, that's the one thing that we haven't talked about, how to actually fish it. There's one tactic that stands out above the rest. And ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you the drop shot. The drop shot. Billy loves the drop shot. Billy, I don't know what's gayer, drop shot or playing golf.
Touch it, Billy.
Yes.
I would much rather play golf.
Open your mouth, big boy. So this is an amazing
5 if you're keeping score at home. That's 5.
5 fish, 5 alive. That's so the drop shot's a big deal. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to get between the 2 columns. Okay, I got a column right here and I got a column right here. I'm going to take this drop shot. We're not going to go in depth on drop shot fishing. If you guys have any curiosity on that, go to his YouTube channel. We've talked about it before right here. Same time, same place. I'm throwing light line, like 12-pound line, 1/0 hook. This particular hook's weedless. I'm leaving about a 6 to 10 inch leader with a light weight. Now, I'm going to pitch this drop shot between those 2 columns. I'm going to open that bill and I'm going to feed that line off. All right, and I'm going to let it go. Then I'm going to close it, and then now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to reel, I'm going to drag it. And why I'm dragging that is because when you're feeling for something, you should be using your rod and not your reel, right? So, we're Carolina rigging, we're not going, I mean, sometimes we are, but most of us aren't. We're dragging it. We want to, when we spend all this money on these rods, we want to get some use out of them. Same thing. I'm going to drag this drop shot up, right? And then I'm going to stop, kind of go, I'm going to push my rod in and see where my drop shot's at. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be a point, let me borrow your arm, stick your arm over here. There's going to be a point where that drop shot's going to come up and that weight's going to land right on top of that square. Remember I said there's round columns and then there's square cross? That weight's going to sit right there on top of that column. Now we're in business. Now guess what we got? Hey, I didn't say anything about taking that arm down, Marine. Stick that hairy arm right back up here.
You're not touching me with
Let me borrow. I'm not going to put it on you. This ain't going to be what makes you gay. You got a lot more things going against you than this. So now we've got that weight sitting there, and I don't want to move that weight now. I want to move this worm. So my goal is to move the worm without moving the weight. And I've got an opportunity to move that worm and not move that weight, and all those bass are sitting in that vicinity. And why drop shot? Well, for them, why not? It's a breath. They take a breath and they eat it. Now we're targeting the biggest bass in the lake, eating crappie, right? That's what we're doing. But the reality is, even when I go and order a big old ribeye, if somebody orders onion rings as an appetizer, I'm still gonna eat one. Mm-hmm. You're gonna eat a bunch of them, but I'm gonna at least eat an onion ring. Yeah. So if I'm a big bass and I'm sitting there in that bridge column, I'm wanting that 2-pound crappie to swim by, and I'm wanting to suck it in. But if there's a little minnow and it ain't doing nothing, and it's just sitting there, and I ain't got nothing else to do, I don't want to burn up a lot of energy. My metabolism's so slow. You catch these bass in the winter, they can't even jump. There's no reason that they're not just going to suck it in. And that's one of my favorite techniques. Now, I'm going braid to fluorocarbon because, dude, I might as well be speaking Japanese. This dude don't even know. We done lost him like 5 minutes ago when I pulled out the spinning pole. This sucker would have it upside down, reeling it backwards.
I don't even have a spinning rod.
I know.
It's right in that parking lot right now.
You know what I tell people? It's like working on a TV and trying to use a jackhammer. It's just another tool.
That's why I don't work on TVs. We go on power fishing in my boat, son. I'm sorry.
So, but anyways, it's a great tool. And I personally have caught some freaking monsters.
Oh yeah. So what's funny and ironic about you saying all that in this conversation is something that I have done a lot that I don't think I've ever told you. I've never told any of you. But in the spirit of 2020 being the best year ever, and we're about to start 2020, we'll just go ahead and let this one out of the bag too. In the summertime, I will take big perm, that big Magnum crawler on that big shaky head, right? Stand up shaky head for 6 cents, 5/8 cents, got a big 7 hook, and I do the exact same thing. Throw it past that cross member, and I pull when the bass are suspended in summer under that bridge, and you can do the same exact thing you're talking about. Drive down the bridge parallel, look at your side scan. Oh, there they are. Whip around, pitch up under there with that big perm, pull it up on that cross member, and just leave it there. And the good thing about this, one reason that I love that worm, with no salt in it, it'll stay standing up. It may not always stay standing just dead straight, but it pretty much stays standing up, especially if there's any wind current going through it. And you can just literally put that worm out there and just sit there and just hold your line. You just don't even move it. And that's go up there and go thunk, and you go.
It's so tricky to talk to you guys about bridge fishing because we're sitting here, it's 30 degrees outside, and I'm wanting to talk about winter time. And maybe in the middle of summer,
we need to do it.
If we can remember, we can break it down a little bit more. But listen, here's the deal. I love bridge fishing. If I need to catch fish, I know I can catch fish on the bridge. I mean, it's a man-made, unbelievable boat dock.
You know what's
sitting there.
What's crazy is it's a very dynamic piece of structure, right? That's the deal. It's just a very, you talk about big fish being lazy. They can move up, down. They can move a little bit to the side. And they've got all the different depths, and they've got cover. and structure and all that.
And there's so much fish.
So much life in that area. And what's funny is, you know this, in the guide culture, or in even maybe, I don't know, maybe even in the whole professional fish, but certainly in the guide culture, especially around here, it's like, man, he's just catching bridge fish. And it's like, well, anybody catches fish on the bridges. Right. Well, you know why?
Yeah.
Because there's more of them on it than anywhere else. Like,
yeah.
It's a great place to fish. Why would you knock that? Like, you know.
And I didn't bring my glide baits. But
that's a thing.
Another time.
That's a thing.
That's a thing. That's a big thing. That's a serious thing. I mean, the big girls.
But right now, what you're talking about is right. The finesse swim baits, the Alabama rigs, the drop shot. That is definitely the deal this time of year on the bridges.
Makes me turn my hat. I mean, do I look goofy with my hat
with that bald head sticking out? You need like one of them fitted ones so you can cover that thing.
Well, you better not let your wife see me like this. Everybody's like, man, where you been? Where you been? Well, I seen naked pictures of myself on Billy's phone, and he ain't seen me in a while. So we're trying to solve these issues.
That's 6. If he called one,
there's kid. That's Woody's kid. That don't count. Hey, I want to get
what about your kid? You don't worry about saying in front of your kid?
That's not my kid. That's not
my kid. Okay, we got a giveaway.
I'm gonna do a giveaway. So when he was talking, when he was giving us a message on Christmas, which was awesome, by the way, he brought up a president's name. He named one president. Who?
Lincoln.
There you go. There you go. That's all I needed.
Make it happen, Kevin.
I did hear him say
trivia.
Yeah. I heard Abraham Lincoln. I slept through the rest. No, I'm kidding. I didn't. That was great. That was great, by the way. Thank you. I needed that. I think my wife and I, at this moment in time, we probably wanted to hear something awesome like that. So, man, that's bridge fishing. Questions? Give me at least one. Go ahead.
Okay. What knot do you use going from braid to lead?
FG knot.
Okay, the FG.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed you use a round weight as opposed to
that's because that's what was in my box.
Oh, okay.
So that round weight is obviously going to get hung up in timber more.
Right.
You know, you got a root, you got a round weight.
Yeah.
I like the cylinder a little bit better.
Okay, that's what.
But bridge fishing, it don't matter.
Okay.
You know, dock fishing don't matter.
Block.
I don't care personally on the weights. No, I don't care. Good question. Go ahead.
Between the columns, it runs that cross member between each set of columns?
Yeah, so that cross member, and it's not on every bridge. You know,
that's true.
It's not on every bridge, but it's a strap essentially to build strength. And if you look, it is, and they're always going to be square. That's the important part. Is even if you've got a round column, you've got a square cross member. And back to the Divine underspin. One more thing about that. That thing is a real big deal in the summertime. We whacked them, and Billy knows a little bit, but I was so quiet about it because I don't hear no bridge fish stuff. Like, I don't do none of that stuff, you know. Like, I'll fight you man to man. I won't go get them back up. I'll go to the bridge and catch them. But that Divine underspin is, dude. I mean, like, that's a real deal. This summer we got a hold of some fish. This summer we got a hold of some fish we couldn't get in the boat, Jack. I'm talking about bent hooks and stuff. And I mean, it's not a bad hook. It's a medium wire hook. You don't want a heavy wire hook on any kind of a bait like that. But we got a hold of some big fish this summer.
One thing you got to pay attention to is the gauge of your wire on your hook on your swim bait jig heads. Because some of your regular swim bait jig heads, like the Divine jig head that you'll use with the screw lock and all that, it's got a pretty beefy hook. And you can use a little bit bigger rod, a little bit bigger line, and you can jack them and horse them and all that stuff. You can kind of fish like we like to fish in East Texas because we're men and never mind.
That's one for you.
That's one.
Wait a minute. Whose side are you on?
Somebody get their wife.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
But it's on every one that I've ever seen on the underspin heads that have the blades, they always have a thinner wire hook.
Yeah.
And
it's a medium gauge wire hook.
It's two swim bait jig heads that look almost identical, except there's a blade under one, but I throw it on a completely different setup because of the hook. You got to pay attention to the gauge of the hook.
The reason that they do this, the reason manufacturers do this, is because those are suspended fish type baits. Anytime you're fishing anything that's suspended or that's designed to get down, and I don't mean fall down, jigs, Carolina rigs, those fall down. Yeah. Baits that are designed to get down, they need a little bit lighter line. Okay, I personally have thrown what I call a swarm hornet. So Scrounger and a swarming hornet, I threw it before any of y'all, and 99% of y'all. And the only reason is a buddy of mine fished co-angler FLW back in 2004 and 2005 and went up north and got in a boat with some of those spotted bass guys, right? And they were like, dude, don't talk about this. Literally, I mean, they're telling their co-anglers, hey, don't talk about this. Don't tell nobody about this. My buddy comes back, hey, dude, this swarming hornet, blah, blah, blah.
So he came back and talked about it.
Yeah. So, of course, Casey Ashley won the Classic. We all know that. We're talking about a decade later, though. I'm throwing it back when the only option to put on it was a fluke, and that was the deal, you know. And it was a throw it and parallel the front of a dock, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, slow rolling deal. I throw a 7.3 medium heavy action rod, and I'm 99.999% of the time throwing 15-pound fluorocarbon line on any of those jig head type deals, other than tightlining. That tightlining is a really big deal. I'm telling you now, you guys at home, you guys right here, drop some comments if it helps you at your home lake. It's a big deal. It's going to catch a lot of fish. People don't do it. I have personally caught almost 40-pound bags on local reservoirs doing that on spinning rod. So, man, that's bridge fishing. We ain't got no more good questions?
Well, hey, I got something I was going to go into tonight.
Let's hear it.
If you watched the video on Wednesday, we talked about pre-spawn and kind of how early it starts around here. And there was something that I think I kind of said in that video that maybe I didn't make clear, and I wanted to kind of clarify that tonight. And I wanted to talk more in depth on the pre-spawn deal. And I'm going to want questions from you guys, because there's probably going to be some, because this is not like common knowledge. This isn't something that's like the generally accepted theory. This is a little different, and it's my own theory, and it's just how I feel about what I've seen over the years out here. And so I want questions for you guys. So Tank, you're my question guy. You always ask a lot of questions. I need you tonight, buddy. Pre-spawn. So what is pre-spawn? Pre-spawn to me is when the fish get out of a winter home and start making a migration, transition to start making a migration. Now, I don't mean they're going to pick up and leave and swim to the back of the creek right now. I mean, they're going to start moving in groups. Groups of fish will start transitioning and moving into the mouths of creeks. That's the very beginning of pre-spawn. We all know around here, well, a lot of people around here know that you start throwing a jig in creek channel bends in kind of the second half of November.
Say what?
That's what a lot of people do. I mean, the state record before this one was caught on a jig in November on a creek channel bend.
What color are we throwing?
Blurple.
Okay.
Blurple. I will tell you, in November and kind of up till about here recently, I have been throwing a lot of greens and browns too. But yeah, black and blue or black, blue, and purple is the deal in the wintertime. But when you think about that and think about what's going on there, what's happening there, why are those fish in those creek channel bends that time of year? Well, that is literally the first movement of the pre-spawn migration. And we start in November and December in those deeper creek bends closer to the main lake. But all of them that I know that I catch fishing out here, they're inside the mouth of a creek. They're right at the mouth of a creek. When I start in November, I kind of started those ones right at the mouth of the creek. And then like now, I've got to the point where there's some that are 3/4 of the way back. Some of these creek bends I'm catching fish in, these fish are already 3/4 or more further back in these creek arms. And these creek bends aren't that deep. Like the bottom of them might be 12 foot and the top's 8 foot, 6 foot.
Well, at Palestine, somebody asked about Palestine. We're catching them. Everybody, drop comments on the Palestine stuff. We're catching them, and we're catching them. We're not like going out there and having the day here. And buddy, I'm talking about we catching them. I caught more fish in the last month and a half than some people will in 2020. It's been crazy. And we're catching them in the back 3/4 of the creeks. Exactly what he's talking about. Right in those migratory areas. And, you know, the residential fish, which I know you're going to cover, but these are residential fish. And,
yeah.
And they're in Palestine, a lake like Palestine that fishes earlier, Conroe. They're back in the back 3/4 of creeks. And we're talking about creek channels that are 3 to 6 foot deep.
Right.
And you can see the bottom on the sides.
And there are some fish in residential areas. And Lake Palestine is a little bit of a unique lake in that it has a very big population of very big fish that live residentially shallow year-round. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
It's a little bit unique to some of the other lakes in the area.
Yeah.
Don't have that year-round shallow population of those big fish the way Lake Palestine does. Thanks, buddy. I'm just not going to mess with it. We're just going to roll with this one from here on out.
Is he blowing up on you, boy?
But But no, you think about that. So the fish are starting to make their pre-spawn migration. They're as they move in, and as the weather changes, some days they'll rise in the water column, but they're always hanging around that creek channel bed. Then on those cold days, boy, they go to the bottom of the creek channel. And those are usually, whoever has heard, the best jig fishing days are the nastiest days, the coldest, windiest, rainiest, snowiest. I mean, when it snows, that's when it's time to go jig fishing. That's around here. The few times we get snow, you need to be jig fishing on that day. Those are the best jig days of the year when it does happen. But that's what happens is those fish move into these creeks, and the mouths of these creeks, when we have that nasty cold weather and the water temps start dropping, it pushes them all down into that creek channel in the deepest water they can find in that area. And those deeper bends that have the steeper drops, that's where they get gathered up, and that's where you catch them. But like I said, right now, here we are. What's today? December 21st? 20th? December 20th. And I've been catching fish for several weeks now in creek channel bends that are pretty far back in the creeks. And the beautiful part about that is, I don't like the fact that we don't have a lot of grass in most of the creeks. I don't like that, but it is what it is. You got to fish the conditions you're presented. Right now, the conditions on Lake Fork we're about 2 foot low, and not very many of the creeks have a lot of grass in them. And so what that does is take the shallow residential fish, and when it gets real cold, they're going to suck back to the closest creek channel bends, which sometimes are going to be those ones that are 12 foot deep, whatever, those medium depth. And then as the pre-spawn fish move in, you get a collision, and now you get a whole bunch of fish in there. And so it really kicks off. Like when people think of pre-spawn fishing, it starts, honestly, kind of at the end of November. Like the very first part of it starts at the end of November. And it's a deeper deal, it's creek channel bend deal. And then as we move forward, so now by the time we get to January 1, here we are December 20th. So in 11 days, 12 days, whatever it is, by the time we get to January 1, every year for me, I've really started looking at a big way in the backs of creeks and shallow, especially if we get a warming trend. Because what's going to happen is, as these pre-spawn migrating fish move up, okay, now you got the other fish that have backed out. Now they're kind of together. They're all going to move in there together. Every time we have a couple warm days, which we got some coming up, those fish are going to move a little further back. And then they don't go back out to the main lake. Once they move in and pre-spawn, they don't pack their stuff and move back to the bridges.
And I'll add to that, there's a lot of them that just aren't going anywhere.
That's true. There's a lot of fish that don't. There's a lot of fish that won't start their pre-spawn movement until March.
When the water dips, and I'll throw this out there because a buddy of mine the other day goes, man, what's going to happen with your Palestine fish with all these cold fronts? And
nothing.
Well, they can't move. I mean, if you've seen a snake when it gets cold, they can barely slither. Yeah. I mean, a bass isn't a whole lot different. The biggest misconception is that these bridge fish that I'm talking about catching when it's cold, and these creek channel fish that he's talking about catching, that they are the same fish. No, they ain't the same fish. No. They ain't.
No, they're not.
These are two totally different fish.
But so, to speak more, quit chasing squirrels for a second for me personally. These fish aren't leaving. As they get into these creeks and move back, they're not going to go back out to the mouth of the creek. Once they start getting 3/4 of the way back, all they're going to do is when they get foul inclement weather, when it gets cold, when the water starts dropping, because they don't care how much it rains or snows, they just care that the water temps are dropping, right? So when that happens, those fish aren't going anywhere. They're just going to suck back to the deepest drop in that area and gather up and get as comfortable as they can, because they know they're making their yearly migration back there. And then the next time it warms up, they'll climb up out of that creek channel and kind of spread out and get on the flats. And then when you do have grass, it's unbelievable, because they get keyed in on that grass, and you can hit that grass with certain baits and make them react, and it's awesome. And if you don't, you just bounce square bills off of the stumps. Is what you do, I guess.
Spinner blades.
Spinner blades. That's right. But that's what I wanted to talk about. So in that video, I didn't really hit it right the way I wanted to when I made that video, and I did explain how early this thing starts and how the residential fish kind of collide with them. And then that's why when you get to this time of year, when those two things start kind of hitting, like right now, we're kind of in that magic zone where residential fish and migrating fish are starting to collide in those creek channel bends. And not just the creek channel bends. Like I said, on the warm days, they get out of them, right? But they're starting to make that move back already. And it's December. And I never really have honestly ever heard anybody teach that in December it's time to think pre-spawn. But over the years being out here, that's exactly what it is.
Tomorrow is the solstice.
Tomorrow is the solstice.
It is the solstice.
What's the solstice?
Yeah.
It's the shortest day of the year.
Shortest.
I was like, did we pay the solstice bill? I was got nervous.
Man, I don't know. All I know is tomorrow I'm going fishing.
I had a 1-800 number that
More
keeps
daylight
calling me.
tomorrow.
It had something to do with the solstice.
So tomorrow's the shortest day of the year? Beautiful. So, and that's a very good thing to know. I'm not real good at keeping track of those. People ask me about moon phases and stuff. I'm not very good at keeping track of those.
I gotta go fishing every day
because I gotta go figure out how to catch them every day. So I really don't pay that much attention. And, you know, some days we catch them real good and it lines up with that, and somebody will mention it. And I'm like, cool, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great point though. That's a very valid point to this discussion, because the shortest day of the year is a cue that nature gives all animals that, okay, this is kind of the center of the winter. Now we're moving forward, right? Because the days are getting longer. That's something that every animal can know by instinct.
I knew I was hungrier than I was yesterday.
Yeah. And so these fish really are getting cued in, and it just goes to verify what we're talking about, that it is pre-spawn. It's pre-spawn right now. The pre-spawn bite is really starting to get better, man. There's some fish really gathering in these creek channels, and they're not easy fish to catch because the water temps are cold and the water temps are dropping, and they are cold-blooded creatures. Like Ryan said, they can't move. And when they can't move, their metabolism slows down. They don't need to eat as much. They don't eat as much when they are cold. But one thing about it, when you're talking about winter fishing and pre-spawn, everybody knows we catch bigger fish in the winter on average. Your average bite in the winter is a bigger fish than it is any other time of year. And
Yeah,
the reason that
100%.
is because their metabolism does slow down and they do eat less. And the male bass 100% fall into that category and that thinking. The problem is the female bass, her metabolism slows down and she needs to eat less, but she's really pregnant. She's really, really, really pregnant and getting more pregnant every day. And that counteracts the metabolism slowing down with her need to intake more food. So that's why you catch so much higher percentage of bigger fish in the winter. So even if they are tough to catch, and even if the bite is a grind, and you've got to kind of slow down and really creep that jig in there, or make them react and really bang it, crankbait around.
Make 7-8 casts on a stump because you know there's one there.
We literally, look, the other day I was out here on Lake Fork, and we started off on a creek channel bend about 12 foot deep in the middle, about 8 foot on top, and we cast it, and we were sitting there for about 30 minutes making the same cast, and those guys were kind of looking at them like, just keep fishing. They're in there. Just keep fishing. And literally the first bite happened, didn't even have that fish in the boat, another guy had one on. So they're in there, and they're hard to catch. But you have to get these areas dialed in. And once you get a couple bites in the area, really build your confidence, fake it till you make it type deal, and just fish that area for all it's worth. Because once you find fish this time of year, especially on the colder days when the water temp's been dropping, there's always more than one this time of year. They're in groups. They're on the colder days. It's driving them down into groups into those deepest water areas within a given area. And so, yeah, fish hard, stay with it, grind it out, and it can pay off with. I mean, you might sit there and catch 4 or 5 fish, sometimes a lot more than that in one creek bend, and you can fish all day, and then that one creek bend you might catch a 30-pound bag. I mean, that's a very realistic thing that happens a lot.
Not only do I strongly agree with that, but this last month and a half for me on Palestine, where I've been, and the people that follow me on social media are going to know that.
And you have been absolutely whacking them, and you don't know how bad I want to come to Lake Palestine, but you are much braver than me with your boat.
Yeah,
because it's
it's bad. I mean, it's most of the areas I'm fishing are 45 minutes to an hour idle. But what Billy's saying is really true. And I know we're kind of rambling on, but guys that are watching this, you guys that are here, if you're one of these Lake Palestine guys, and everybody wants to know where I'm catching them, and I have to blur my photos out because I have a guide business to run, and I owe it to my customers. And the reason is what he just said, is these fish are in small areas. I might fish 4 miles of creek and catch 20 fish in a 20-yard stretch.
Yeah.
Okay? But you said that about throwing the jig in the same spot. I had a day that Jonah and I were out there, my fishing partner, and I made 6 casts. And on my 6th cast, on a square bill, I got bit. And we caught 6 bass after that. And this particular day, from me to my truck out there, our best 5 were between 25 and 26 pounds. And we caught everything on a square bill and a spinnerbait. But the reality is if I sit here, Billy likes me, we're friends, but if I flick his ear enough, eventually he's finna turn around and get me.
Not if you flick me, but if you pull my ear hair, that'll get me.
Somebody's gonna have to pull your ear. But if I flick this dude, I'm talking about just thump him in the dome 10 times in a row, eventually he's gonna turn around and do something. Yeah. It's the same thing for that bass that Billy's talking about that doesn't want to bite. This is the only time of year. The water temperature dropping is the only time, or stabilizing is the only time of year where you literally have to bed fish, if you will, for those bass. And you have to bang that crankbait, bang that, hop that jig.
That jig, it hits that root, hop, it falls right in front of their
face. Drop it, shake it. And you get them, and if you catch one, how many times have you ever caught one bass? You're like, that's the only one bass there. Have everybody ever caught a bass Only one, you're like, that's the only one there. If you have, and I have, and you have, we all have, we're all wrong. There's no such thing. Every fish lives in schools. You know, I'm sure there's some kind of Billy Bass running around that likes to be by himself. But for the most part, fish live in schools. Man. And if you catch one, the rest of them are there. You just got to figure out how to make them bite. And that was great. That was a great subject to touch on. We're going into that, and I've been in on that. Yeah. And I've been catching them.
And the good thing about everything we've talked about tonight is, and this is what I've always found maybe the most intriguing about bass fishing, is there is no absolutes and there's never any one way to do it.
No, it's like law or medicine. We're all just practicing it.
We are. And that bridge deal is a very valid deal. And I am doing both. I am fishing bridges and I am fishing
Sure, I would be too.
And there's because I'm going to tell you, when the fish are lethargic and they don't want to bite, you got to put a bait in front of as many of them as you can in a day to catch enough to have a day.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's tough to have a day. And listen, what we're sitting up here talking about tonight, I'm not telling you you're going to go out there and fish Lake Fork this weekend or next weekend or whenever you get to go over the holidays. And I'm not telling you you're not going to go out there and struggle. There's a good chance you will go out there and struggle. It's winter, boys. They don't really want to bite. Unless you're dialed in and you know them fish are sitting right there in that creek bed and you keep hitting them in the head, it is hard to find fish and catch them this time of year. What I'm telling you is that it is worth your trouble. And even if you struggle, just know in the back of your head that you're getting closer. And one of these days, when you're out there, you're going to collide with that magical moment where you're going to catch the biggest bag of your life in the middle of winter. And you're going to catch 4 or 5 casts in a row on a jig in a creek bend, or 4 or 5 casts in a row on an Alabama rig on a bridge, and you don't fish that creek bend or that bridge for an hour, and then all of a sudden you caught 5 in a row. It's the biggest 5 fish you've ever caught. You're going to be like, well, what just happened?
Absolutely.
It happens.
Man, that's awesome.
It is. I get so excited. I get so excited about winter fishing because it's big fish time of year. You can catch really big bags of fish. And then around here, we're fortunate. If you want to just go have fun and go spring fishing, go to a power plant lake and it's fish like March. It's basically March. On Lake Wells, Martin Creek, Brandy Bay, it's more or less March right now.
So one of the questions I had was the power plant lakes on free spawn. It's a lot different timing on it, isn't it?
Power plant lakes are really weird. They almost Martin Creek does because it's a big lake.
They're spawning at Martin Creek like crazy.
Martin Creek's an anomaly. Martin Creek's an anomaly because it's so big, the heated water affects it differently than the smaller power plant lakes that we're used to having around here. Back when we had Monticello, when it had heat, Welsh, Brandy Branch, these are really small lakes. Martin Creek's, it's not as big as Fork, but it ain't that far behind it. It's a big old lake. How big is Martin Creek? Do you know?
It's not that big, but what it is that bridge really makes it 2 different lakes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is significantly bigger than our other power plant lakes.
It's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger.
It's probably 8,000 acres or something like that, I would assume. Okay. No, or less.
Either way, it just affects it differently. Yeah. On like Welsh, like pre-spawn is weird because you kind of come out of summer and then it's like those fish just spawn when it's the coldest time of year because they back out of summer straight into spawn when the water gets as cold as it gets because it doesn't ever really get much colder than 65 to 70 degrees.
And all you got to do at Welsh is just throw that smash tail on.
That's
go down the bank.
A great swim bait lake. They are spawning like crazy on Lake Welsh too. There's a bunch of fish. I mean, a bunch of fish on beds right now on Welsh. One other thing that reminds me of, because I was at Welsh a couple days this week, normally when we go to Lake Welsh, we're used to catching a bunch of fish. A bunch of fish. And this is something that happens out here, it happens everywhere. When fish go to spawning, like when you got a small lake especially, and there's a big percentage of the fish spawning, you can go ahead and expect your numbers to drop.
Sure.
Because it's going to spread them out and it's going to make them to where some of those fish that get on a bed, unless you sit there and look at them and throw at them over and over again, they just won't bite. You can run a bait by them all day and they just won't bite because they're locked into that.
Especially if you're obsessed and addicted to sight fishing.
I love sight fishing. But spawning fish can be difficult to catch unless you're looking at them at times. Did you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, if you go to Welsh and they happen to be a bunch of fish on beds, you're probably not going to have your 30, 40 fish days that you're used to having out there. And that's kind of what's going on for me out there. I'm not catching a lot of fish on Welsh right now, but we are catching quality fish on Welsh. So. Yep.
Man, that was awesome. We got hundreds in attendance tonight. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yeah. Thank you guys for coming, man. It's a tough time of year to get people to come out, so we appreciate y'all coming. Any questions, anything?
I'm headed down to Falcon. I've got dates open from January 28th to February 14th. I've got some dates open. We're going to have a great time. The lake's fishing really good this time. It's low, but we went ahead and bought a new truck, so I ain't got to worry about getting no boat ramp. I can launch off the bank. So, and I got a bank. Look, I love throwing a black and blue jig so much I went and bought a black and blue boat. So, man, it's going to be a great year. Man, I'm
You've
excited.
got a brand new boat. I've got a brand new boat coming. And
built.
yeah, we are very, very blessed and very fortunate. And I said this the other night on a video when I think it was live on Facebook or something. But you know, as I look back on 2019, as we wrap it up, the one word is just grateful. I'm grateful to have guys like this that are willing to help me and come on and create content and provide valuable information to you guys. And I'm very grateful for my family being as supportive as they are of me always being gone and all this stuff. And most importantly, I'm very, very, very grateful for all of you guys that are watching and all of you guys that come here, man. It does mean the world, and that's why we always want to try to give back. So thank you guys. Grateful for Lake Fork Marina. We've got so much to be grateful for. So,
hey, shout out to Smash Tech for giving away the goodies. That's pretty awesome. Billy, thank you for the shirts.
Yep.
Thank y'all for everything.
Awesome.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful educational bill.
Give me a hug.
Oh,
Give me a hug, big fella. That's number 8. So he's called 3 times tonight. He's on his way home.
It's
Perfect
only-
winning bag, folks.
It's only gay if you love them.
All right, hey, we'll see you guys. We'll be back here in 2 weeks in 2020. This is the last one for you. See you all in 2 weeks. Thanks for coming.